So, guys, there's a new MCU movie out. This is the 21st movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, a universe that has grossed, I've read somewhere, don't know if this is accurate, but $18 billion.
That's about right.
That sounds right.
So,
I buy it.
There's the new one. It's called Captain Marvel, and I think we all saw it. Is that correct?
We did. If we didn't, that would be kind of embarrassing.
None of us saw it. We're gonna discuss.
Yeah, I
which
didn't
is
see
how
it.
which
No,
is how
it's
those
how most people
Rotten
are reviewing
Tomatoes.
it on Rotten Tomatoes. A lot of the fan reviews or the audience reviews. That's how it's been going.
Yeah,
We both have the same thought there.
so let's just hop in to talking about the movie. I guess who wants to? You know what? I'll put it out to you guys. Who wants to go first here?
Why
Someone
don't you go first this time?
No,
Yeah,
God,
you.
no! Please, fucking a. I knew that would backfire on me. But sure, somebody ask me a question. Like
Yes,
what my thoughts are. Like somebody what my thoughts are.
What? Hey, Zach.
Yeah, what's up, buddy?
Why don't we? Why don't you give us our? Why don't you give us
This
your
is why
thoughts?
Zach hosts. Zach, what were your thoughts on Captain Marvel? You just walked out of it. What did you think?
Wow, I just walked out of it. Well, my seat was sticky. Don't know what happened with that. I hate this theater. Clean your seats. No. Basically, I liked it, but it's definitely a middle tier Marvel movie for me. Walking out of the movie, I would say that I'm gonna get very broad.
I'm
and then we can
gonna
sort of
stop it because of where Ryan is, and I can't get my head out of there. Ryan was like laughing, and I think it's because he's thinking that you meant my seat was sticky from you.
fuck.
Because Ryan's like face went like ghastly white, and it's like and was like cringing.
I didn't mean that. I didn't mean that like that. I meant like this theater I go to, the seats are always sticky because people leave popcorn butter on the seats. I didn't mean that. Oh fuck. Oh shit.
Finally got a woman in tights on screen.
Oh holy hell. Holy fuck.
Ryan was like, "Where's this podcast going?" And I could
no.
That is not what I meant. People just spill things. It's a very dirty movie theater. It's very cheap.
All right.
Oh god. This is why I don't start. This is why I don't ever start. Okay, seriously though, getting into my thoughts on the movie, I would say it's probably a mid-tier Marvel movie for me. I'm not going to go too in depth into what my thoughts are. I think the movie really picked up for me in the second act. I didn't really enjoy the first act very much. I thought some of the performances were really good. And one performance in particular, Brie Larson's performance, I didn't necessarily love, but I'm not sure if that was the writing or if it was her. It probably was a mixture of both, actually. But there is one thing I really, really enjoyed about the movie towards the end, but I don't want to go too in depth. We'll hear you guys' thoughts, and then we can all sort of talk about it. So, Alan, what were your thoughts on Captain Marvel?
My thoughts on Captain Marvel. Echoing a lot of the things that you had. I think that. I think it's sort of in the middle. It's sort of it feels like one of those Marvel movies that's just like. It's a Marvel movie, and it's for better or worse. Gosh, it's hard because we're non-spoilers. I don't know if we said that. This is no spoilers. We're not going to talk spoilers the entire time. But yeah, it's there are some good things. There are some things I really liked. I don't dislike. I think you were saying like with the writing. I don't know that I dislike Brie Larson's performance. I actually think that I could see her doing. She doesn't have a lot to work with, and I thought that was really weird because they got a very a great actress, and they didn't give her really anything emotional, or there just wasn't a lot that they gave. It was almost like how with Wonder Woman they didn't give Gal Gadot a lot, but like they had Brie Larson. Like I felt like that was mostly like I think the writing was pretty bad for the film. For the most part, I think writing in general is pretty bad for the film. There are a couple really bad performances, in my opinion. I didn't like Annette Bening in her role. I thought she was actually really bad.
Yeah.
And there were many lines where it's just like, I swear she's reading this off of cue cards for the first time. Like, like she has no idea what emotion is. And she's actually like a great actress. I just mean in this role, she phones it in hard, and it's like
she didn't really get the lines. Didn't really. I don't know. They weren't great altogether. Okay, so
she phoned in bad lines.
First off, I want to say like great way to start off this discussion. I was dying. Yeah, I had to like turn completely away from the mic so I wouldn't laugh while you started talking, and then Alan couldn't. That was really great. All right, anyway. Sorry, I just wanted to say that.
I'm so embarrassed.
I'm still like laughing a little bit. It was hilarious. It was an honest mistake. Like we clearly know what you were trying to say. We clearly know. I just had a really. I don't know why. That was what I thought. I thought that's what you were saying at first. Is why. Anyway, okay. Off of that completely. That's another pass. So. Yeah, I completely agree with. So I'm more down on this movie than you guys are. I don't dislike the movie. I'm going to say that right off the bat. I actually think it's not. I think it's not bad. I'd say I'll say right off in the beginning. I would say it's probably like a mid tier, like a lower mid tier Marvel movie. Well, like mid tier still. It's in that mid somewhere. I haven't actually ironed it out. I'll have to sit on the movie a little longer. But I'm probably going to sound more negative than anybody else on this. So I just wanted to kind of make that point right away. I would agree with Alan. I think the writing is probably one of the weaker points for a multitude of reasons. Like in the very like surface level thing when people immediately think about writing is the dialogue. I think the dialogue is like all over the place at sometimes. Some of my biggest problems with like throughout, I had a hard time really being able to like Captain Marvel or Carol Danvers at all until. Like I towards the end when, as you were saying, Zach, like towards that, like as it started to kind of pick up, she felt very disconnected to me. So I had a hard time like being able to empathize or even just like feel anything for her character. And even towards that back end, it still didn't do enough for me. There was, oh God, I can't think of the actress's name. Do we have it in here in the notes?
I have IMDb up actually.
Okay. Sorry.
Are you talking about Lashana Lynch?
That is Lashana Lynch. Yep.
Yeah.
Lashana Lynch. Sorry. I forgot her name. I'm sorry. She's not like an A-list star or anything, but she should be because I think she was incredible. Well, and she is the single reason why I cared about Captain Marvel at all in the movie. And I thought they did an excellent job with her. And I thought her lines actually written weren't that bad. I've actually, I actually thought it wasn't that bad, but it feels like everything they're trying to do with Carol Danvers, it just felt so. And this is where I'm going to disagree with Alan. I thought it just didn't really work for me. I know Brie Larson's an amazing actress. I've been talking her up, and when I heard of this casting, I was like, "This is fucking amazing," because I think she's a spectacular actress. Like, watch Room. But she came across. I think it's a combination of like the directing and writing, as well as her, that her character just comes across so wooden, and I just feel like I wasn't able to get into her character at all. Do you get what I'm saying at all?
I know. So I'm sorry, I'm going to just cut in here if you don't mind. No, I think I found my enjoyment to her character was really, it sort of was pivotal with who she was with at that moment in time. Like I enjoyed her character when she was with Lashana Lynch's character. I enjoyed her character when she was with... That was her best. I enjoyed her when she was with Nick Fury. I didn't like her when she was with Jude Law or the other Kree. Like, and I think that she was so wooden. And again, I'm going to say that Brie Larson didn't do a good job, but I really do think it is primarily due to the writing and the direction.
I think it's a combination of the three, and I think it's mostly leaned towards the direction of the movie with the writing, because I think it's the biggest flaw of the movie in general.
There's a big part of the movie, and again, we're not going to spoil anything, but there's a big part of the movie where they're literally telling this character that they can't show emotion, and when you put a character into that box, it's really hard to feel for that character. Yeah. There is also a storyline in this movie that disconnects the character from themselves, and that is also something that I tend to not feel very connected to. Yeah. And so
the thing was, in your guidelines too, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, yeah.
I just want to make this point, because you're even saying like, yeah, they put her in a circumstance in these circumstances where she can't really be herself, but she still kind of does anyway, which I think was what they were trying to do. But it still just doesn't work. It still doesn't.
Yeah.
It's with like they try to kind of show a little bit of a personality, but it's just not real. It doesn't give nearly enough to make me feel anything. So I see what they were trying to do. And I just think a combination of just the writing, directing, and I really don't want to bad talk Brie Larson.
Feels like
I love
a film
her as an
that,
actress.
It feels like the film. Like I think the film has like 4 screenwriters, and it feels like
oh my god,
has like. You know.
Well, there's nothing wrong with having a good amount of screenwriters on a movie, but it does feel like a lot of people's opinions are all kind of tugging of war with each other. Tugging of war, whatever.
Yeah.
I think, this is probably a good place to start. I actually want to keep going on to writing a little bit later because I have a lot of complaints about the writing. I've thought about this a lot. But I guess this is a good place to start with the character of Carol Danvers. And so we kind of got our initial thoughts out of the way, but how do you guys overall feel about her going forward past this movie even as well?
So I and maybe I'm different. I feel really good about her going forward because I think that there were glimpses that showed. I think Brie Larson cares about this character, and she's a phenomenal actress.
Yeah.
And I think that there were glimpses that showed now that we've gotten past the story they were telling here that we can start to see more of what she is and more of what she'll be able to do. So I'm actually seriously looking forward to this character going forward.
I think... Oh, sorry.
No, you go.
I think this is going to be a classic Thor sort of situation here for the MCU, in which they tried to make a character be very similar to their comic book counterpart, and then realized that maybe the transition wasn't 100% riveting or all that interesting. And I think watching Carol progress will make her a better character. I think basically they have to give her a bit more of a personality or really define what that personality is going to be. Sort of like how I feel like Thor had grown throughout his 3 movies to become a better character.
Yeah,
I was going to make
on the strengths of the actors.
I was going to make basically the same point. I think you nailed it. For me, I think it's a better comparison. It's for me. I totally see what I say a better comparison is Captain America in his first movie. Because I feel like so. To answer like the kind of question I asked in the beginning, I don't feel like as confident as I would after like watching like Guardians of the Galaxy with those characters or Iron Man or I would even say Thor to an extent. Because I feel like I wasn't given a lot for this character, just like how Steve Rogers is in the first Captain America. Like if you just watch the first Captain America, you take Winter Soldier out of it, you take Civil War and all these other movies out of it. There's not a lot to him necessarily. He's kind of a bland character, and they are able to flesh him out into what he's like in the comics, but also kind of what they decided, like the direction that the directors wanted to go with the character, particularly the Russos. And I think that's what this character needs. And I think I'm still excited about this character going forward because it's Brie Larson, who's a fantastic actress. And I think with time, exactly as you were saying, Zach, and because I loved your point, with time, the filmmakers are going to find a direction for this character, and I think it's really going to work. Because I think, like, in my opinion, like, the writing and, like, particularly what they did with her character in the writing, I think is the biggest flaw of the movie, but I think it's something that can easily be improved, and I think that's a similar complaint that a lot of people had about the first Captain America.
I couldn't agree more. I actually watched the first Captain America this week, so I thought that was really
but that's the other thing.
Brought up.
Like, it makes the other Captain America movies have made that movie better.
Yes,
so I'm hoping
100%.
I'm hoping the same happens with this. I'm still very confident that that's going to happen.
I have a
lot of faith.
Rewatching the first Captain America, the Russo brothers did a really great job of like tying in a lot of like strings and character moments to really make that first movie a lot more impactful. And I really hope that that's what happens with this as well, like you were saying.
Because I think it's also similar to like Doctor Strange. I mean, I think I felt a little more confident with Doctor Strange after his movie, just because I thought there was a little bit more threads of personality shining through. But at the end of Doctor Strange, I was not impressed. I'm gonna be honest, I don't really care much for Doctor Strange. But like in the future movies, even in just a couple movies, actually just two movies, because of Thor Ragnarok and Avengers Infinity War. Mm-hmm. I love his character now. Like I'm actually so on board for it. So I'm hoping the same happens for this, and I'm sure it will. I'm confident that it will. I'm sure she's going to be fucking kick-ass in Avengers Infinity War or Avengers Endgame, and I'm going to be super on board. But as of right now, not so much, because based on this movie, and that's one of my biggest flaws, is that I just couldn't feel anything for the main character.
Yeah. So while we're on the topic of performances, I think that it would be a poor decision to not talk about who I think the standout performance
We
of the
all are
movie
thinking
is.
the same thing.
Yes.
Was Ben Mendelsohn as Talos.
Yep.
Was really, really good.
Yeah.
It's surprising because I didn't expect him to be.
Yeah, I was
as
honestly
interesting.
going into the movie as it was starting. I wasn't really sure how I felt. I was like, okay, yeah, it's fine. Especially when they first introduced his character in the movie, I was just like, all right, fuck this. I was just kind of like, this is not gonna work for me. And then it weirdly, as the movie went along, and then decisions that the film makes his character just so much better.
Yeah,
as it went along.
I remember at one point during the movie, I turned to you and I was like, I mean, it's not as bad as I thought it would be. And then all of a sudden, it's just like, I actually love this. And I turned to you later. I was like, I actually love this character.
And I got the most weirdly enough, I got the most emotional payoff from the entire movie.
Oh my
his
gosh!
character.
Yeah.
I felt nothing until we got to certain points in the movie where I was like, okay, actually, I'm actually feeling something now. And a big part of it was because of his character, which I thought they did such an excellent job with. I thought it was really cool. Some people may not like some decisions made in the movie, but I was super, super happy.
Zach, your thoughts on Talos?
I echo what you guys said. I thought that storyline was the strongest in the movie, and I thought Ben Mendelsohn's performance was also the strongest in the movie. I was very concerned, just seeing the trailer, that it was sort of going to be like a dark elf kind of thing, like from Thor: The Dark World, and it very much wasn't. And I love the way that they took that character and that storyline, and it was one of the only moments in the movie where I was like, I love that.
It was like actually like
I liked
genius.
I liked a lot of things, but I loved that,
and I've been talking a lot about so far, and I'm going to continue to talk about how bad I think the writing is, but I think the direction they went with his character overall and that kind of story arc they kind of took on in the movie was really awesome, right? A really cool idea and really worked. I will give credit where credit's due for that idea alone. And if you've seen the movie, you'll know exactly what we're talking about. But you'll go see it if you know. But okay, where should we continue?
Well, I mean, if we're still on performances, just real quick, I thought Samuel L. Jackson was good. I think he continues to always be as good as you'd expect him to be, which is still great. It's just not like anything so super stood out.
It didn't blow me away, but it wasn't him.
Yeah. Jude Law, super disappointing.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Okay.
I think again writing, but I didn't feel like
he gave
his all.
Here's where I am on this again. So Jude Law, his character, I think, was such a missed fucking opportunity, because I know if we had a spoiler talk, I'd go into more details, but I think they could have done so much more with his character, and I really am disappointed that they didn't take. It's not even risks, just realistic, some things were handed to the movie to make his character more dynamic, and they just didn't take them.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of introduce ideas to do that, but they just don't take them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really frustrating, because they could have made him so much more of a dynamic character overall throughout the movie. So that was a big disappointment for me, but this case, I don't feel like I'm criticizing Brie Larson a lot. I think I do think, again, the writing and directing is a bigger problem, but I don't feel like any lines that Jude Law, I mean, you guys maybe disagree, I don't know, but I don't think Jude Law, I didn't have any problems with Jude Law in the movie. I thought there was a couple scenes.
There's one scene in particular that is the crux of the movie, but everyone's
horrible
in that movie.
In that scene.
Zach, I don't know. I'm not going to go into spoilers, but I'm going to make it vague enough that you can know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
The scene that they flash back to multiple times in the movie, and then then they do the big showing of that scene. Everyone acts terribly in that scene.
Yes. Yeah.
It's just a horribly written scene too.
I think, again, I think Brie Larson did a little bit better than, this is where Ryan and I disagree slightly. Do you know what I mean? Because I think that the bigger issue was the writing and the directing for that. But I also agree with Jude. I do agree with you on Jude Law. I don't think he was necessarily, himself was necessarily that bad. I don't think his character was written very well.
No,
it's for the first third of the movie, he's just exposition dump. And then actually, you know what? I'm thinking most of the movie actually.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying he was great.
No. I totally. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
When he was speaking and when he was delivering his dialogue, like I wasn't as much taken aback from him, and it might also be because he wasn't the star. You know, he wasn't the person I'm supposed to resonate with. Mm-hmm. Because he wasn't. And again, I think a big problem again with the writing of the movie, and you know, without getting into spoilers or anything, is the main character we couldn't like get into because the movie won't really let us. Mm-hmm. And because I can't get into like the character of Captain Marvel, it just makes everything that feels flat about her character even more flat, if mm-hmm. that makes any sense at all. Mm-hmm. Like I needed more from her character. Not as much as I needed from Jude Law's character because he was such a throwaway, like, you know, he's not a throwaway character. That's the wrong word, but like he's not the star, if that mm-hmm. makes any sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I think we've tackled performances well enough. I think that, you know, I think we were all saying Lashana Lynch actually did a phenomenal job in the
she was the role the best acted. I think
like even when she had bad lines, she made them actually feel pretty impactful. Yep. So. I remember. I think I was turning to you. I was like, she just made that bad line actually sound kind of good. Like, yeah. So, you know, but one thing that I really wanted to touch on, because I noticed it throughout the whole film and I was talking to Ryan about it during it, I think that the visual effects were awesome for this movie.
We see where the money went on this one,
because especially I think that there was like one thing that I was like, that didn't look quite right, but like a lot of movies have that.
Yeah.
I thought for the most part, the visual effects on this movie were like top notch. I don't know if you were in the same boat with me on there, Zach.
Yeah, I tend to agree. There was like literally one little shot towards the
I wonder if you're thinking the same I think you're thinking the same one. Sorry, I'm going to cut you off.
We might be.
We'll talk after, obviously.
Okay, but there was one little shot where I thought was like off, but honestly, for most of the movie, I thought it was pretty good. Actually, our guest later in the show, Colton, asked me right after I left the movie whether or not the special effects were like good, just because we had talked about Black Panther quite a bit, him and I, and the special effects in that movie, and I said that there was like one scene that I didn't think was great, but nothing that comes close to the train sequence. Like, so
yeah, I was gonna say like they actually cared and believed in this movie, unlike Black Panther, which they should have. But where I think Black Panther was a much better written movie than this one.
Yep. Definitely agreed, but the visual effects on Black Panther are not,
I would say Captain Marvel, I would 100% agree with you guys. This is like a top tier for me. Not the best, because obviously I think Infinity War, just because all the money went into that, but this is like right up there. This will be up there with like Guardians 1. It's really gonna be like this, Guardians 1, Avengers Infinity War, and then maybe like Avengers and then maybe Avengers what's it called? Age of Ultron.
Yeah.
That's probably like the top tier right there for visual effects. Yeah, this was a gorgeous film. They really knocked it out of the park with the visual effects. The de-aging on Sam Jackson, like most of the way through the movie, you're just kind of like, you keep saying that it's makeup. It's not makeup.
It's makeup.
It is not. I don't think it's makeup.
It is not. It's because they did makeup for Michael Douglas for
but it wasn't just makeup. It was both. It was de-aging as well.
Yeah, it's both.
But that's still visual effects.
No. I didn't know that they used any for Michael Douglas. It's like it's all makeup. Like that's what I was saying. Like when they did his, which was weird. So that's why I didn't know. I could be wrong. If you're telling me I'm wrong, then I'm probably wrong. I thought it was all makeup, so I wasn't sure.
Okay. Either way, I thought the visual effects overall were pretty seamless. I thought everything looked great. The makeup as well, if we're going to go into that as well, seamless. Like production wise, like the movie, like it's a good looking movie. And it's a good one to see on the big screen. So I would recommend it at least for that. If you're a big Marvel fan as well, I'd recommend it for that as well. Do we have any more to say about that in particular, visual effects?
This doesn't fit into VFX, but it does fit into like visuals. And there were a couple fight sequences that I didn't think were very good at all. Particularly one towards the end of the movie, which I honestly don't even really know what happened.
Shaky.
Yeah.
Actually, I thought
action
most of the
in general.
Sequences.
I mean, to me, like I thought it was bad, but there's been worse in some of these movies. But a lot of it, I would agree, is like really like it was like hard to watch. It was like I don't really know what's happening. It's pretty similar to what a lot of action movies do. So I don't want to like go on too hard about it. It's definitely not the worst thing.
Yeah.
And I think it would have been passable. It would have been something I would have noted, but if the movie was better written, I think I would have been able to kind of like be like, it's fine. So the movie's set in the 90s.
Is it? I didn't know that based off of the movie.
This is again, if I want to go into, I said I want to touch on the writing, and this is something I think that really kind of bothered me throughout. So this movie took place, I just said, it took place in the 90s, but the 90s never really felt like a setting of the movie. One of my big problems was the humor in this movie, because they were very cheap. They used the 90s essentially as a cheap gag.
Like, remember?
Basically saying the same joke over and over and over again. And it really frustrated me. Not literally the same joke, but essentially like, hey, remember the 90s? Like, that was...
And that was
like, hey, isn't that so different from today? Like, isn't that funny? Like, you know, that never worked for me a single time. And and like, the 90s was not present otherwise. The setting had nothing to do.
Which I thought was really good.
The soundtrack, but
not
the
that
soundtrack,
necessarily...
but I thought some of the choices for the music felt a little weird. It almost, again, felt like, remember where the 90s, like it just felt like it was like going for nostalgia, and it just, the setting, to me, it just didn't feel like it fit at all. And that was like a huge problem of mine throughout, that like, I feel like it almost makes the movie feel like a novelty. I don't know if you guys feel the same way.
No, I think the only difference is I didn't feel the same on the soundtrack specifically. I think that the soundtrack kind of made me feel good on it. But yeah, I would agree with you. I think that oftentimes they were like, it's humor because it's dated, and that doesn't really... Mm-hmm.
I'm going to make another comparison to Guardians, and it's probably not fair, but because I think Guardians is like top 3 Marvel movie of all time. Guardians 1. I think when you compare the use of the soundtracks in that movie compared to the use of the soundtrack in this movie, it felt... Maybe it's to me, I don't know, I could be completely wrong, but this didn't feel like it had as much purpose, and it felt a little more random, and the music was just kind of thrown on in post, unlike where it felt like it lived in the movie with Guardians. I don't know. That might be just me making a weird read.
I think there are one or two song choices that I agree with you on. I'm far more in the middle about the soundtrack than...
I don't think every single song choice was wrong. There's a few that didn't really work for me as much, and I thought just kind of felt thrown in.
But I do tend to...
remember we're in the 90s.
I do tend to agree on the setting. There was one 90s gag that like worked for me, but other than that, every other one was like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, right, yeah, get it. Like that's just sort of how I felt the whole time. Except for that, the one that that worked for me was just pretty passive, and I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of funny, I guess, but whatever. That's sort of just how I felt.
Unfortunately, like, even past the 90s thing, I don't know you guys felt about the humor. There was a couple jokes I thought were pretty funny, or at least chuckle-worthy, to an extent. Yeah. But I thought a lot of the jokes didn't really hit for me, and I find this with a lot of Marvel movies. Some directors, I think, have a better keen... Like, they're a little better at finding that kind of sense of humor that I'm looking for. Mm-hmm. Like, I think for a good example, Ant-Man, I guess this is also a little subjective, I don't know. But, like, for me, like, this movie and, like, Black Panther completely missed the mark on comedy. Like, the Black Panther what are those joke, I still cringe when I think about that. I understand what they were going for, but yikes. And then this movie, again, like, all the 90s jokes, nothing really made me cringe in this movie, but it's just, I never really, there was a few things that made me laugh, otherwise I was just like, it felt like cheap jokes or cheap gags. That kind of felt baseless. But then, like, a movie like Ant-Man, which I think is not, like, a great movie by any stretch of the imagination, made me laugh a lot. And I think that kind of fit my sense of humor a little better. And I think that
it might be a little bit unfair to compare Ant-Man and Captain Marvel to, or Black Panther and Captain Marvel to Ant-Man, which is almost a comedy. Like Guardians.
I'm just talking about the sense of humor in general.
Yeah, no, I hear you.
I can still criticize the jokes.
Yeah, but I think that Ant-Man was I'm not saying maybe I'm misinterpreting what you're saying. I was like, because Ant-Man like is a comedy, and so is like Guardians.
Yeah, and I think Black Panther.
I don't think either of these are comedies. There's
I think Captain Marvel and Black Panther do better than Ant-Man in a lot of different things.
Yeah,
for sure. Like visual effects for one, for Captain Marvel, writing for one, for Black Panther. But I was just saying that I felt like and obviously these movies are all gonna have things they're better at. But I'm just saying, like, the jokes to me felt,
or even
they
like
worked
the first
for me more.
Avengers,
I don't know. They felt like actual jokes, and the callback jokes like were for other scenes in the movie made sense to me within the context of that movie.
No, I feel you.
And this one, it was just like, oh, remember the 90s for the most part? Like, there was a couple of jokes that I thought worked, but again, they felt random and almost like, I don't know. Well, I just thought, I don't know. That's
one thing that I enjoy, I'm not going to say what it is specifically, but I enjoyed it in the beginning, and then I enjoyed it like the first time like the second time it happened, but then it kept showing up and it kept being like a really prominent part of the movie, and I just thought it was like overkill towards the end. But I enjoyed it for like its first two times it showed up, but then after that I'm like, okay, you're really hitting me over the head with this. Okay, yeah, you're really okay. I don't know why really
I'm drawing a blank on this.
Over the head with this.
Is it a spoiler to say?
Well, no, I guess it's not. It's in the trailer. It's Goose. It's the cat. Like,
oh, the cat. Okay. Yeah, we don't have to go into details on the cat, but I hear what you're. I 100% agree with you.
Because I was in. I'm a cat person. I was so in for like the first two times that this happened, or the Goose showed up. But then it was like it kept showing up, and this kept being a thing, and I'm just like, okay, really, let's move on.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, do we have anything else to say about
this? Anything else?
I'm trying to think of other things that we may not have hit on.
I think that
I'm excited to see her.
I feel like we've been more negative than anything.
Here's an interesting thought. 21 movies in, and this movie is not in new canon. So, like, it's smack dab in the midst of canon. So how do we feel that this fit into the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
Oh, yeah. Don't think about it too much. That's kind of where I'm at.
I think that there are some things that I'm like, oh, that's cool.
Don't watch them in chronological order, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think it works that way.
I think that there are some things, where it's like, oh, it's kind of cool, unless you like think about it, and then you're like, well, that doesn't actually make that much sense, or, you know.
I've seen so many things on Twitter, too, where people are like posting like scenes from other movies that kind of contradict what's been said.
Yeah.
Or maybe not even...
It doesn't... I don't...
totally contradict, but at the very least, it cheapens certain scenes.
I actually went back to watch Captain America: The First Avenger because I was confused about one specific plot point. And I remembered incorrectly from Captain America: The First Avenger. But there was something... There's multiple things in here where, like, again, I don't think it necessarily cheapens, like what you were saying, but I think, or not, it doesn't break it, but it does sort of, it just muddles it, I think. It adds a little bit of confusion, so. But
then there's also this one glaring thing, I think, that, like, it's really, I guess it's not a huge deal, but it was just, like, kind of something... I don't know. I can't really say.
They kind of to me it's like it's mostly nitpicky. It's not like it's a huge deal. Any of this stuff. I was just saying. I wasn't going on your thing. I was just saying, like, in general, this stuff. I think a lot of these things we're talking about aren't like, they're not like movie breaking. I just think in terms of fitting in, it's
this isn't a spoiler for me to say it because it's the literally the fucking. You see that Captain Marvel is working with Nick Fury. It's in the fucking trailers.
Right.
We know Nick Fury's in the movie. We've talked about it. So this isn't a spoiler to say, like, it kind of contradicts, like, in Thor when they're like, oh, this is the first, like, they're like, this is the first time we've ever had proof of alien life. Sure, he could have been lying, but the way they act throughout those entire movies is like, this is our first experience with fucking, well, aliens or anything outside of our human life. Everything has been Earth till this point. Mm-hmm. That's kind of the point they really make a lot in the movie, in the Thor franchise. Right. And in this one, it's like completely contradicts it, because not only are we just completely introduced to the idea of aliens, but like, it's just, I don't know. It just,
and I think that they want you to buy it on the secret, like the secret nature of S.H.I.E.L.D., but it's like,
but we see like their specific reactions,
right? And S.H.I.E.L.D. isn't secret to us, the viewer, so that's sort of weird to expect. So I agree.
It's not like a huge thing. Like, these are, let's be real, these are Marvel movies. They're gonna keep making these for I don't know how long, forever, and they're gonna contradict themselves going forward. It's a guarantee.
Yeah, it would have been.
Comic books do it. This is honestly not. I'm not complaining about this at all, because I got out of the movie thinking about this. I'm just saying it now, but like realistically,
it would have been honestly insane.
I'm just saying, don't watch them in chronological order. Watch them in order of release, and you'll be fine.
Yeah,
it's really not a big deal. Not worth.
I asked because I think it's an interesting question to talk about, but I want to make it perfectly clear that I have come to a whole new place about canon to the point where like for a couple of years ago I cared very much, and now I'm at the point where like, does it kind of fit? Sure, okay, cool, whatever. Show me something cool, give me a fun time. Like, make good movies. Like
I think it was after Days of Future Past, like did all that stuff, and then I think I even said to Alan, like Alan and I used to talk about that all the time, and I was just like, I really don't fucking care about canon anymore. I was just like, I don't care. Give me a good movie, and I'm cool. I don't care if it fits. I don't need to think about it. It's an action movie. It's a Marvel movie. The comics don't make canonical sense.
No, but
they can still have good fucking arcs. So give me a good fucking arc in a movie, and I'm down. And that's kind of where I've been at the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So I don't give a shit. Like I sat there bitching about the Thor thing. I'm not actually bitching. I just kind of point that out, but I really don't care.
Well, yeah, and I cannot care, but I also think it's fun to talk about. So I definitely don't have an issue with you saying that stuff about, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's still fun to talk about and like find these inconsistencies or find where, oh, well, it's actually not an inconsistency because you could like it here and it actually, and like that's fun to me, but I also don't give a fuck.
I agree.
People
like to overthink
headcanon stuff,
too.
Like things to be like, oh, okay, this is why it makes sense in my head, and I think it's kind of fun, like because all of our favorite things have issues, especially if it's television. Like all of these like big pop culture things, like they have their own plot holes and stuff. Because it would have been absolutely insane if like Feige, like while making like Phase 1 movies, was like, okay, and then 21 films in, I'm gonna make a film that takes place in the 90s and fits with all this, like. So, I think that...
Like, to me, all I care about is, like, if you made a good movie or not. That's, like, the big thing for me. It's, like, that I have fun watching the movie, that I like the movie. Like, if it doesn't... If it crosses some things out because it worked better for the movie you're making right now, I'm honestly totally fine with that. That's fine. I guess to a certain extent, but for the most part, I really don't care that much. Like, I'm not the kind of person that's going to sit and nitpick about all their movies when I'm watching one movie. Unless it's blatant.
Right. Unless they kill Nick Fury in this.
Like obviously, yeah. It's like they kill, yeah, exactly. Like obviously there's going to be some things that I'm going to be like, but like, for the most, like stuff like the Thor thing, whatever, not a big deal. Anyway, guys, I think we've been talking about this for a while. I'm not trying to take hosting.
No, I was actually going to say, hey boys, what do we think? Should we score this movie up and move on? So,
yeah.
Alan. All right, you know what? No, Ryan, start off. What's your score for Captain Marvel?
All right. I've actually been going back and forth on this, and this is going to be kind of a cop-out because I'm still not sure. I've been kind of going back on this a little bit because sometimes I'm a little higher on it than other times. I'm going to say it's anywhere right now between a 5 and a 6. I know that's like out of 10. Mm-hmm. That's still good. If it's over 5, that means I enjoyed it, and I still think it was worth watching. 5 means that I'm just kind of average on it, and I think it's okay. I'm going to say between a 5.5 and a 6, because I still think it's worth watching. There's enough, I think... No, I'm going to actually stick with 5 to 6, because when I can be down on it, I can be down on it. I'm going to stick between a 5 and a 6, and I guess that's all.
Like an internal crisis happening.
That's exactly what I'm trying to say. Like I'm going back and forth on it. And then ask me again after Avengers Endgame and after the Captain Marvel sequel or whatever she's in.
I will.
And then it'll probably be better. I
will ask you.
We'll see.
We'll have a whole podcast about Ryan going back on his review.
Yes, and it's just going to be me arguing with myself.
Hell yeah. Alan, what is your score for Captain Marvel?
I think... because I was between two things as well. I'm gonna go with the 6, which was the higher of what I was between a 5.5 and a 6. I'm gonna go with a 6, based off of, I think I'm sort of almost giving it the benefit of the doubt on thinking a little bit, like I don't think it'll get higher than a 6, but I think giving it the benefit of the doubt of I'm excited to see where this character goes. That sort of feels like not correct to do for the movie, but I think that I'm gonna stay 6. Just because I think that there was enough that I really enjoyed in it to overlook some of the things like I do with a lot of Marvel movies and still say that I like the film. So I'm going with a 6 out of 10.
Excellent.
Zach.
Yeah, sweet. I was hoping you would ask me. I didn't want to just say it. I was also kind of wrestling with my own thoughts here a little bit. And then I went to my trusty MCU ranking sheet. Ryan and I have had this discussion this a lot through the past week, but we love ranking shit. So I have a consistent MCU ranking going on. And when I was comparing it with movies around there, I ended up landing on the number 6. So I'm at a 6 out of 10 for Captain Marvel.
Sick.